Never in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth. The onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
Bingo. Common. Slutz. Bingo. Common. Slutz. Bingo. Common. Slutz. Bingo. Common. Slutz.
Hello, welcome.
Hello.
We're on Pinko Commie Sluts. It's October. Are you guys October people, or am I the only one?
I love October.
Yeah, October's lovely.
I mean, by that I mean, are you Halloween people?
No, I'm not going to dress up. I mean, I like Halloween. I just don't like, doing things.
I buy like 75% of my accessories like during this time, so I have like skulls and bats all year round.
I would never have guessed.
Yeah, I mean,
Given
Halloween's cool and all.
Given your witchiness,
don't
that you
like making
yes,
things.
Yes, in my earnest observation of Samhain, which is what it is in the Wiccan calendar. Really Wiccan, because it's a recreation, guys. Look, we don't have to get into it.
No, I like falling leaves season.
Yeah, I'm like less about the spooky, because to me spooky season starts and goes straight through Christmas. Christmas also spooky. I keep the tradition of ghost stories for Christmas, and that is where Christmas Carol comes from, because it was a thing they would do, is sit around and tell ghost stories before Christmas, which I like.
Were they all Christmas themed, or were some of the ghost stories?
Were they all about killing your boss?
No,
or
not
making your boss feel
necessarily
guilty?
Christmas themed. It was just like appropriate and seasonal to tell ghost stories, especially like Christmas Eve. In the world of Charles Dickens, that was a thing.
I like fall for, it reminds me of cross country, running cross country and running around trails and the leaves falling, and the only thing that sucks about it is the leaves are fucking slippery and they hide rocks.
Oh, and there's snakes could be in there.
I enjoy changing colored leaves.
Yep.
But you hate the aesthetics of fall.
I like it. They're okay. If they don't have like something spooky specifically, I'm less enchanted.
What is not enchanting and spooky about leaves changing color? That is like magic in the natural world.
I'm just less of a harvest person and more of
With a K.
we're talking to the dead.
Magic with the K. But you're entering into the season of death. It's the signifier for death, is the changing of leaf colors.
Yeah, I'm probably more of a harvest person than a Halloween person exactly. But also, I don't know. Generally, I'm just happy at all times. I just like vibing. I like being alive in the world. And be it fall or some other time, they're all good.
It's interesting. You told me almost the paradigmatic opposite thing last night.
I just love, I love Marlo's insistence that he is not a misanthrope.
No, I love people in this world.
He just expresses
I'm a man of the world.
He just expresses all his visceral hatred of them to prop up how much he loves them.
I don't like going through life negative. Life's too short.
That's right, Marlo. Rarely negative, rarely critical.
Barely ever a bad word said about other people.
That's right.
Life is too short.
You can
for
go
those
ahead.
Bad vibes.
You can go ahead and
Marlo's all about beachy good vibes.
Yeah, just live and let live.
Absolutely.
Positive energy. Marlo.
He's got.
You see my wrinkleless forehead? That's from not getting stressed out all the time.
Oh my god.
Although you are getting a little gray in the beard.
Oh yeah,
which
that just
might
makes
be
me look
stress.
dignified as shit. No, that's
Slightly
just,
closer to wizard,
Yeah, no, that's just
which is
to make
very
me look
Halloween-y.
dignified and silver foxy.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, and like I said, as far as the holidays go, I kind of like Halloween's like removal from any like even ostensible religious justification, and that it's purely a social holiday. But at the same time, I don't like putting the effort into like making a costume, thinking of a costume, and all that stuff. So but I like that it exists.
I like it because people can become people that they aren't, or at least they can trick themselves into thinking when in fact it is them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mask come down and it just shows another mask.
Yeah.
Or they
sure.
put on a mask.
That's sure probably something Derrida said at some point.
Zizek.
Yeah, one of them. I don't know. They're all
One of
They
them.
like masks.
They all like masks.
They like masks. It's about identifying yourself in relation to your character.
I don't know. I think.
Who's your favorite person to dress up as for Halloween?
Well,
Yourself.
most frequent costume done by me is Catwoman, but I always do a different Catwoman.
So
I've done like Batman Returns. I've done Batman
Nipple
Batman Returns. The nipples are on Batman, not her.
Yeah.
So she's got a stitched together leather
we were
suit.
talking
I've done
about
that. I've done
Schumacher.
Batman the Animated Series Catwoman. I've done one of the 60s comic book Catwomans, and then I've done one of the Adam West Batman Catwomans.
That was my favorite Batman growing up, was the Adam West.
It's
I like
awesome
the animation.
it's awesome. The detective work, the quote unquote detective work that Batman does, because of course he is a detective, technically originally.
a vigilante
it always
detective.
involves my favorite episode of Adam West Batman is the fucking. I believe it's the Riddler.
My favorite.
But I think he's teamed up with somebody else. But anyway, Batman and Robin are captured, and they're going to be put through this machine that punches the holes in sheet music that go into like an automatic, one of those
player piano.
one of those player pianos, right? So they're strapped in there, whatever. So it's going to stab them.
That children related to at the time. And
Absolutely,
it's one of those things.
That's what I related to growing up watching
Batman, genius that he is like, Robin, we've got to sing the right notes so it hits around our bodies, and it is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I just if you're gonna watch one episode of
So they're like,
Batman. Yes, it's so great. It is like,
and then
and then they come out and they're able to get out because it's punched all around them. And not through them.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman, Adam West Batman's full of stuff like that. The movie, which is one where Julie Newmar is Catwoman, the movie Adam West Batman, there's a scene where they need to go after the Penguin, but the Penguin has done something where he doesn't have fingerprints, right? His little floppy hands, he doesn't have fingerprints. And then Batman is like, well, actually, we can check his ears. Right? Which is a true thing. And, God damn it, there was some criminal in the past 3 years who something happened to their fingers or hands, and they did check their ears. And I tweeted
Adam
about
West,
it. Search my Twitter.
Somebody in the police department watched that episode.
That's what I hope. That's what I hope.
Well, Adam West Batman was like a more ridiculous version of like old Bond, where it's just like where like all of a sudden he'll just say something in like Japanese, and it'll be like, yes, you had your course on Oriental languages at Oxford, and it's just like, yeah, all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, like all, yeah.
Yeah, just an infinite amount of skills. This is also what I like. Batman, as is established, is my favorite comic booky
Me too.
property. So, but yes, my favorite versions of Batman are sort of this international man of mystery Batman, where he's got amazing deduction. He's like Sherlock and James Bond.
But like it'd be like Sherlock Holmes, but like instead of like, oh yeah, you have red dirt on your boot, you must have been to Yorkshire or whatever the fuck.
Dude, don't say whatever the fuck when that's exactly what it is, Mark. Exactly. He's acting like he's not.
Anyway, yeah, no, but it's like you said, of like, oh, we're in a player piano puncher. We need to like sing notes so it would punch around us, or
Oh, there's a staple gun that's about to. They're gonna fire us, and we're gonna get stapled to a wall.
But don't worry, that model of staple gun only holds this many staples, and I've counted all of them.
Well, and before we had a conception of rich guy who can get crazy gadgets, which is a more modern thing, Bruce Wayne Batman was rich guy who could have gadgets, but it was all about his like cleverness and his like ability to pull on these skills when needed.
Well, he was a MacGyver.
Yes.
And now it's about his ability to not be subject to unlawful search and seizure laws. No, I mean, now it's just about his ability to like kidnap people across national boundaries when the police can't do it.
It's just about.
I will say it's also probably about hiding the assets of Wayne Enterprise.
Oh yeah.
In his.
Well, yeah, because when
like,
Bruce
like-
Wayne, the original Bruce Wayne wasn't like now Bruce Wayne's this billionaire,
He's an
right?
arms dealer.
Yeah, like the original Bruce Wayne was just like the rich guy of Gotham City, right? It wasn't like now we've extrapolated these characters into this world, or we fit them into our world. So now he's like,
Whereas originally he was like a Depression era, kind of like Daddy Warbucks.
Yes, and originally it was
And
there was a
instead
lot
of
about
having a
him
red
doing
ha-
charity and stuff like that as Bruce Wayne.
And
there was
instead of
like,
having like a redheaded stepchild that he just brought in like a boy sex slave and was like, hey,
Bruce likes his boys.
you're really good at gymnastics.
I disavow this Robin slander.
Yeah, no, okay. Actually, no. In the 1930s, it was very common for
older men.
male rich people to have a boy who lived with them. This was a thing people did. It was a part of growing up.
It's called having a ward, okay?
Yeah, they called them wards.
All right.
Yeah, they even had a name for them. It was just like, if you were a rich, older, single man, you would have a boy living with you.
boy toy.
See, I think it's cheap and tawdry to make these inferences when you really should be criticizing Bruce Wayne for getting these young people involved in this vigilante underworld that ends up getting some of them killed. So I feel that's an actual... He's trafficking them in the traffic way that actually happens more, which is just labor.
They have nothing to live for. So what else are they doing with their time?
What's in it? I was
you're
going to go in a dark spot.
No, go in a dark.
What's in it? Oh, Ed Buck. Okay, never mind. We're good.
Okay. Let's fill in the blanks for.
I guess.
Yeah, no, I think a quick Google search can like tell you the sort of joke I would be making there.
Ed Fuck?
Buck.
Oh yeah. This guy that has all the men that he has sex with, right? He's a Democratic.
He's a major Democratic donor in California.
And a bunch of men are
who
found
seriously
dead.
like murders homeless black men that he has sex with, and then like purposely overdoses them on amphetamines, and he's like killed like 4 different black people.
Oh,
And Richard, one of our only Patreons, lived like 2 blocks away from Ed Buck when they found
we know
like
someone
his
who was
third
Ed
shit.
Buck's neighbor.
He's one of our only Patreons.
Yeah, and he listens to this podcast.
This is
literally
going to become
what
a
are the
true
odds?
crime podcast.
True crime. Richard killed
the true
people.
crime
It wasn't Ed
podcast
Buck.
with Ed Buck is like, he does it and
It's
he gets
just
away
like,
with it 'cause he's
it's
rich.
a true crime if you're like, we already know. It's just about tricking him into like no vigilante podcast is what we really need.
That would be. It's totally guilty. It has a name and address. You can go find
Well,
them.
have you seen the videos of the real life vigilantes that wander around like Seattle?
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a bummer.
Always sad.
It's always a bummer. As someone whose special interest for many years was trying to figure out how you could actually do comic book things in the real world. It doesn't pan out, guys. There's no...
What have you tried to do?
Oh my gosh, when I was really young, I was obsessed with Catwoman. I was like...
We've established this.
I'm going to learn like violent gymnastics until like I gotta say, I still harbored these. Like I was fully taking capoeira like when I was like 19 because this was still like in my heart dreamscape here. But it got me really obsessed with the idea of being a private detective, and I did all this research.
It's a PI, buddy
How
PI.
whatever. And then where I grew up in Maryland, most of the time you got to be like a former bounty hunter or like you're already a bounty hunter, and it's just like another like licensing there, or you're a former police, and you have to. It was like real boring and not cool. And then later,
you could have been the dame. Of
I
the
returned
PIs.
to this idea later in life because I felt like I was really good at finding things on the internet. So that I was like,
Oh yeah,
maybe
my
I
sister's
could.
friend like basically does that.
Yeah, and
for
I was
a
like,
living.
maybe I could do this, but the like municipality I was in, it was like I wasn't going to qualify for it.
Looking up Facebook pictures and snitching to disability insurance.
See, but then that's the other level is that you, like with bounty hunting, what you're going to end up actually doing is like going after like people down on their luck and things like this. And you're not going to be finding like, you know, the thieving cheater, like whatever. But I still think I could have a mental health break later in life where I like extrajudicially am a private investigator inappropriately.
I think I would definitely have a mental break and become the Riddler.
You've just been investigated.
I don't know. I feel like when I want to know something, like if I randomly want to know something about somebody and I go down like a just weird research hole, I find it out. And it's so exciting because it can be really mundane information, but just the act of not knowing it and then figuring out how to figure it out, you're like, oh, I am a god. Like, it's awesome.
That's
guys.
my job
Tune
at
in
Famous
next week
Birthdays.
for the Mike Tracy's Home Address comedy hour. All Mike Tracy's home address, all hour.
All out. Every hour on the hour, we're going to be telling you Mike Tracy's personal
number
home
is
address
201.
in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Bunny followed him home.
I did see him that one time.
Yeah.
But then I was like, he would absolutely have no context for me. I feel like,
Yeah,
unless
you
he
would seem like
did.
an insane
And then,
human.
what if he did? And that would be like just weird. Like,
Well, that's-
how far are you Googling
That's
yourself?
how I
sir?
feel about approaching any celebrity, though.
Yeah.
In
Right,
general.
but like also we usually use the term celebrity to be different than how we're using it now.
But Mike Tracy is a celebrity in our world.
I mean,
The celebrity is usually a desirable person you would
I
like
feel
to
about
meet.
Mike Tracy as I do about many middling comics, where then I have to remind other comedians that like normal people don't know this at all and don't give a shit. It's very not important, even if they do like it. Like that's the context it holds. So what I feel like Mike Tracy is, like if I tried to tell my mom who Mike Tracy was, she'd be like, okay.
He's just a sleazy guy that we went to college with.
Yep.
That got fucking
Fucked up.
fucked up by Maxine Waters.
And is on Tucker Carlson.
And got
yeah.
fucked up by the cops at Ann Coulter's.
That's right.
Get off my head! Get off my head!
That's
Yeah.
right.
I took the pictures
Just-
of.
And also
Just Google "get off my
has
head."
multiple accusations of an unprovable nature against him.
But I feel
people
like-
are saying. I'm not saying, but people are saying.
People are saying that. I've heard people say that.
I've heard one person say that.
I just heard someone say that actually. Weirdly enough.
It's
it's
actually
a rumor going around.
Yeah, it's the talk,
Around
it's
this
the talk
very
of the
circle.
Town. It's the talk of the town. You can't escape it.
Oh man. Is Mike Tracy a Halloween person? Do you recall Mike Tracy dressing up for Halloween?
He's somebody that would put on like a jacket and a bow tie and go around and say he was somebody more like just to join a social event.
So you're discussing my Bob Dylan costume, Stephen.
Yes. Yes, I'm describing Mike Tracy via your Bob Dylan. No, he's not somebody that would.
Which is unfortunate because the dude could literally slap on a pair of overalls and be fucking Mario.
Yeah. No, he
Easily.
absolutely.
God, speaking of Mario, guys, anti-Italian discrimination.
It's a pandemic this year. We've got an Italian in the house.
Of course, I'm talking about, what is it? Chris Pratt is doing the voice of Mario, which...
and I mean, the thing is, Mario has to be Italian. Otherwise, we would be confused as to why his girlfriends seem to attract gorillas and lizard monsters all the time. It's integral to the plot that Mario is Italian.
I mean, somebody was like, does anybody relate to this story? And I'm like, what is not relatable about going to a castle to try to sexually harass a woman that you've never met before? And then you find that it's not him, it's your friend who's a toad, right? Like, isn't that the premise of most of Mario?
I mean, I guess if I was high and listening to the mountain goats...
Yeah, that's the mountain goats
that might be
version.
what I'd gather from it, but no, that's not how the game works.
Sorry, your princess is in another castle.
Yes, but...
It's a me. How's Chris Pratt going to say that?
It's me.
I don't know. How does Chris Pratt talk? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, no one knows how Chris Pratt talks.
It's
He's
a
a
mystery.
non-entity. He's like a fucking alien from Star Trek where you just like forget ever meeting him after meeting him. He like erases your memory.
He's the Man in Black.
Yeah, he just gives off vibes that are like anti-personality so that it just sort of cancels out and he's a null space.
He's another one. Too much religion.
So. Anyway, good for Charlie Kelly.
Yeah.
Charlie Kelly is Luigi?
Luigi.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it'll be like, hi, I'm Luigi. But it'll say it more like Charlie Kelly does.
Oh!
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and just like shout out to the 90s Mario Brothers movie starring John Leguizamo and fucking the guy who was in Roger Rabbit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, I could actually just watch
I know a lot
Roger
about
Rabbit
Bob
right
Hoskins,
now.
actually, because he is Romani, and he made a movie about it. It was very good. I watched it in this was the name of the class, Gypsy Culture, and at the University of Maryland.
The studies.
Gypsy Culture was
it
was like a class I signed up for and took. It was taught by a musician who was one of the rare gaje to be invited into.
Did he start out every class with the song Gypsy by...
I wish.
by the Fleetwood and the Macs? Or was that solo Stevie?
Or Gypsy Woman by the Jimi Hendrix.
Or the song Gypsy by Shakira.
Or something by Go-Go Bordello.
Or anything by the Gypsy Kings. I do like the Gypsy Kings. But yes, Bob Hoskins.
Play some Devotchka.
Who you know from Who Framed Roger Rabbit was also Mario.
Yes,
Mario.
I've seen that.
He made an excellent movie about
I have seen that
Romani people and history that we watched.
Fun fact about the
Bury Me
90s
Standing?
Super Mario Brothers movie is everyone on set was drunk all the time, according to everyone who's been interviewed about that movie. Dangerously. Like, if you talk to Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo about it, they're like, yeah, I do not remember shooting multiple scenes.
Bob Hoskins has passed on, R.I.P. Hey, Bob, was that true?
Uh-oh, she's talking in the...
He says, yeah, you're right. Milo is right.
In the plane in
October.
This is
Halloween
look, as soon as
episode.
someone enters the other side, they are immediately available to us.
The astral plane.
On the astral plane.
Yeah.
So it's not my fault.
Bunny's tapped into the astral plane.
It's October, dudes. It's way easy right now. Last week,
That's when
we
the
brought
floodgates open.
the LuLaRoe woman in.
LuLaRoe?
Remember the documentary?
Oh, right.
Oh
And then
my
she's
God.
dead. Oh God, she's here again. God damn it! Her hair
she's
is
hanging out
everywhere.
with-
Oh my God, it's
She's
huge.
hanging out with Mario.
Her hair on the astral plane is. Oh my God, she's really into Mario.
Yeah.
I don't know, Bob. I don't know why
He
you're dressed
seems
up
like-
as Mario
he
for
seems
this.
too fat.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
like
anyway.
he's indulging something here.
Yeah.
Marlo doesn't like this bit.
Yeah, it's a bad bit.
Yeah, like you would know.
Speaking of which, speaking of comedians and failing at being funny.
That's right. We, well, at least...
This is another hour that we're going to go on because Bunny is very angry about Dave Chapelle.
I watched the last Netflix Dave Chapelle special, The Closer. He says he is going to be taking a break, so hopefully that is true. Maybe he'll read a book. He was joking that he, doesn't read and stuff a little bit.
Like Kanye?
Not exactly like Kanye, but a little bit. But I feel like it would do him a world of good if you just...
Well, you were saying...
The person who coined intersectionality, just read what she wrote about it a little bit, and I feel like you'd have, some different ideas. I do.
You were saying that you were, is very attached to his religion, and that was a notable absence to his
I
special.
said this, I believe, about the last one as well. But yes, he is religious, and he doesn't talk about how that influences him at all. His thoughts about gender, etc. It's completely absent from the conversation. And I think that is interesting and probably does contribute to what I see as a very fundamentally essentialist idea about gender. Mm-hmm. But I think what I'm most disappointed in is that he doesn't seem to be as curious as I would expect him to be, knowing Dave Chappelle's work and etc.
Okay,
for forever.
Back up, why I didn't see it. So explain to me why this was so offensive to you as a comic.
Okay, I'd stop. I wouldn't put it in that way. I wouldn't say this is offensive to me as a comic. I would never say that. I didn't like it on several levels. Comedically, I did not like it because there were very few actual jokes. The jokes that were there were sort of lazy and hackneyed and from 2015. There's a Pence is gay joke that just seems very wait, people have said this. This is a well-established thing.
They used to say that all the time.
And he says it he doesn't know that.
It's a hack SNL joke or
just a common a trope at this point. So there were a few things like that. Before he even gets into talking about gender or sexuality, there's a few moments where. But yeah, and then I felt like he just tread on the same territory as his previous specials without really adding anything new, though people eager to do hagiography of him easily will take a totally different...
What's the difference? What's the hagiography?
So Dave is probably the greatest living comedian right now, especially if you're if you are a comedian, if you're a comedy nerd, it's pretty agreed upon. And that's the thing, his craftsmanship as a stand-up is unmatched. He's amazing. He can say these dog shit premises and elicit responses from that audience because he's so good at the thing of it, It doesn't mean these ideas are on par with the kind of premises he presented earlier on in his career, and I think it's easy to, if you already want to love him, and like I said, normal people, comedy is a very small slice of their entertainment pie, and they're trying to feel good. So it's not like they're necessarily coming in with a critical eye. I, of course, have had expectations and hopes and whatever about it that are
I guess exceeding. Not offensive, but disappointing.
Yeah, disappointing. I feel like he's this old rich man now. I think he's not very introspective about the fact that the hardest thing in his life is people criticizing him, people criticizing his comedy, his opinions. So let's get real. Dave Chapelle has been very successful in his industry of choice for most of his life. He was doing stand-up before he was 18, and he half-baked. He was 23 when he made that. He's not this person who had this long struggle sesh of whatever. He's been a guy in entertainment for most of his life, and despite him being good and etc., it doesn't mean that's not who he is. And I think Like he has this thing where he's like,
Wait,
little old me.
what was the thing about him leaving the?
Okay, so there is a part of the special where he's like, I was doing these shows around the Bay Area, and and I was nobody, man. I had just left Chapelle's show. I was nothing, and it's like he's totally serious about it. He doesn't say that facetiously. He's absolutely serious with that statement because he lacks perspective. He doesn't know what a normal person's life is like. Like even the ones he weirdly meets in his sort of contrived small town living that he does. Like, I'm sorry, I love Dave Chappelle. Like I know his fucking oeuvre like so hardcore. It's super sad. This is like a fan talking too. Like this is not like I didn't go in. Every time I'm like hoping I'll be like, oh man, he fixed it.
Yeah.
Of these Netflix specials, I've consistently every time I'm like, maybe he'll turn it around with this one. Because the big headline is he's been obsessed with trans people for the entirety of these 6 specials. 6 specials in 5 years, I think, too much. So it's
That's a lot. I didn't realize there were so many.
Yeah, so, and he kind of switches between whether he thinks he's talking about LGBTQ in general or specifically trans people because he
seems to lump them in together.
He does a lot of lumping. He does a lot of lumping in this special specifically. So, but yes, he definitely does that.
Well, he tries not to. He had the one joke in the last one about the L's don't like the G's and the T's don't like.
Yeah, it's the same central thesis though. Is that he's envious of some power he perceives in the LGBTQ, whatever. He called him a mafia last time, like an army or something.
I think it was mostly summed up in a point you actually made earlier in the week of his whole central thesis that it's easier for what's the
oh yeah, that's from the previous special, and he brings it up this time that it was easier for Caitlyn Jenner to change her gender than it was for Cassius Clay to change his name. Which, when he did it in the other special, it elicits this like sort of like boom, whatever moment. And of course, what Dave is trying to, I'll graciously say what he's trying to call attention to there is that like white privilege exists despite being in this marginalized identity, right? But then he brings it up again in this one, and it's like, actually now I've had time to think about it, and I'm like, even if you flatten out the context and the 60 years, I don't think Caitlyn Jenner waiting till she's in her 60s, despite being rich and famous and white. Okay, yes. Despite all these things, I don't think that was necessarily easy, and I don't think that easiness was arguably is born out of a class privilege of having access and money and et cetera. And that is why Caitlyn Jenner's a Republican, because she doesn't have the experiences of people who occupy this marginalized identity, but also don't have those things. And like Dave just is just absent.
And yeah, as you said, like, no, it wasn't.
It wasn't. And I'm just...
Muhammad Ali changed his name in the 60s.
And why are you dead naming him?
Caitlyn Jenner.
If we're supposed
That's a good joke.
if we're gonna do it with the same gravitas, Dave, like, you know what I mean? Like, it sucks because I also know for me, a fucking white woman, to try to make this point in certain spaces, people are going to be like, bah, it's because you're white and you don't get it and you don't see it. And, yeah, as always, that's a dimension I can't escape.
And also, like, literally every one of his points was more or less this idea that, okay, during the 1960s, you could easily find many white people who thought, man, blacks are making a lot of progress really quick. I don't know what they're complaining about. That was a very common thought in the 1960s.
Still is.
Yeah, well, it still is, but like Dave is now translating that thought to trans people of, oh, wow, what are they complaining about? They made so much progress and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well,
is
sure.
Is that his argument, though?
Yes, that is partially one of his arguments.
I thought his arguments was that they were doing it, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're doing it for the clout seemed to be one of his
No, so
arguments.
his argument, so essentially I would distill it down to this. I'll do the nice one first. It's that he sort of separates LGBT, whatever, he does the whole thing. He acts like they are distinct and binary from Black people or Black Americans in this way that is not true, but also just serves his dichotomous argument, right? He uses the existence of white privilege that does exist among people who are white, who are also marginalized in a different way. He uses that existence, which does produce fucked up things, which are, I think, fair to talk about if he really got down to just those points. But there's also this other element that he almost thinks the entire framework around specifically, especially being feminine. He's very fixated on trans women and on gay men who act feminine.
Which is an alignment of patriarchal notions about gender essentialism.
Yeah, but there's this implicit argument that this is sort of an indulgent white people invention almost. That's
and
sort
it's
of
a colonizing thing that they're tricking.
I wouldn't put those words in his mouth. I'd say he does have a moment in one of the earlier specials where he has a digression to talk about how there's a masculinity problem in his wife's homeland of the Philippines in a way that's I feel like is really
solving.
Strange. It's really weird to me, that moment in that special, because it really reflects, I think, some deep importance the idea of masculinity holds for Dave Chapelle. And I think that's the overriding thing I see with his discomfort. And I think he's demonstrated this in his jokes. He's way more comfortable with a masculine woman, a trans man, or what. He's not bothered by that. It's sort of like that Madonna song, What It Feels Like for the Girl. No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It quotes that poem and basically, yeah. Also, there's a new Madonna documentary I'm going to watch for next week. But if I had to be this creep who's analyzing Dave Chapelle, if I could really get down to the nitty gritty of what this is about, I think it's his attachment to an idea of masculinity that is infringed upon by some of the arguments made by because he's uncomfortable with trans activism, right? He's uncomfortable with the arguments made about the legitimacy of trans people. He doesn't like being told that the box he's placed them in mentally is maybe inappropriate, and a lot of the things are arguing that no, it is appropriate.
What you were talking about, I think about this often, how trans women also experience misogyny from men, particularly.
Trans women experience misogyny. Women who get mistaken for trans women experience trans misogyny and transphobia.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a conversation that happens among people who are curious about these things in a way where we're looking at it, where Dave is pretending he doesn't have an agenda. Maybe he's not even aware.
Well, I think that leads into another thing that I recall from the special when he was discussing his dead friend who...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, anyway, when he was discussing his dead friend, and that one night she ended up talking or whatever the fuck, and he's like, it was this lame ass liberal fucking appeal to understanding or whatever fucking dumb shit, and it was we just talked and we didn't talk about pronouns and we just talked for 2 hours. And it's yeah, man, that's called having a friend. And you've always been free to do that.
He's almost arguing
that trans people only have to talk about that.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is it's yeah, well, okay, if they're not your friend, then the Cliff's notes are please use the pronoun I just asked you to use. And when I tell you something and you do the opposite of it, that feels very disrespectful to me. If we want to have a 2-hour conversation as to why all this, well, then yeah, that's called getting a drink with your buddy and talking about stuff, which you're free to do. Everyone can do that. It's amazing. Having friends is great.
Well, it's like, basically, I feel as though the argument Dave is making ultimately is that he doesn't have a problem with trans people because it's possible for him to engage in some manner of interpersonal relationships with individual trans people, as long as they are not talking about these talking points. And like I said, I feel like, so you're uncomfortable with like the activism around it, but not even curious enough to look into it. He's so dismissive in a superficial way where it's like boring how like boomery he is.
Like freshman in college level, like, or high school at this point.
Like there's at one point he does defend J.K. Rowling. So another argument or thesis of this special is that like trying to take away someone's livelihood is like killing them. And he makes this sort of tongue-in-cheek defense of DaBaby where he's like, and he brings up how DaBaby did shoot and kill a man in a Walmart and that did not affect his career in the slightest. And then he said these things about gay people and his career got threatened. And then like Dave's
and then
like
he says
that's
stuff
so
about,
bad,
and
right?
then he says stuff about China and pissed off the Falun Gong. So he's like 1 for 3.
But he did make some Asian jokes about when he got coronavirus and he didn't get that sick, so he felt like his cells were beating up the Asian cells of the.
Yeah,
that's the joke he made. Yeah,
that's a great joke, baby. Good job.
No, that was a Dave Chapelle joke.
That was Dave Chappelle.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, that was a Dave Chappelle joke.
Do you know what DaBaby is?
Yeah. Do you not know?
Sorry, I thought DaBaby made a joke.
No, DaBaby
which he
went
got
on
canceled
DaBaby got
for.
canceled because he said he basically said gay people get AIDS and shit, and like he just went on this weird tangent at an award show that had nothing to do with anything, totally unnecessary, and people were like, "What the fuck?" And then
That was weird.
But then Dave brings it up more than once. And also that's kind of the context he initially brings up J.K. Rowling. He's like, she wrote all those books by herself. And then like all she did was go on this interview and say
I have it on good authority that she actually wrote all those books using a language that was created long before she was even born.
I've heard that.
She didn't invent the writing system.
She didn't invent letters. She didn't invent boys. Story is about a boy. Anyway, so yeah, he's like, oh, J.K. Rowling, and he doesn't even seem to be totally. This is over and over again. He's not tuned into the details about anything.
About her writing a manifesto?
So in his mind, J.K. Rowling simply went on one interview where she said gender is a fact, and then everyone attacked her. Like, he doesn't know that there was, like, several different things, and that she, like, double, tripled down, and he's completely doesn't know, like, there's this whole other British UK context for this conversation that
he also doesn't realize that people who are criticizing his jokes now never read that fucking article from 20 years ago in some gay newspaper.
Okay, well, jumping around, I guess. So there's another part where Dave talks about kind of 16 years ago. This is where he's like, I was a nobody. I would just quit Chapelle's show and whatever. And that was the first time he was doing some jokes that were about or involved trans people. And he says he did a show and a trans person like stood up essentially and said like, you know, you're being transphobic, whatever. And he was like, blah, 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 get out. And then that person wrote an article. And in that article, it called him transphobic. It said he was punching down and he named these like talking points. And then he explicitly says, anytime somebody came at me like that from then on, they would always use the talking points from that one article because he doesn't know that Tumblr exists.
Yeah,
like,
he
doesn't know that these like...
He thought that article literally invented those words.
Like, yeah, like that's how how he talks about it. He talks about it like
and
it's...
that anyone criticizing him would not have the language to do so.
Yeah,
if
and that...
they had not read some obscure article
in
a gay culture like zine from 16 fucking years ago.
Yeah, so what he's doing there is he's making it so if anybody does mention these things, like an idea of punching down, which absolutely, you know what the fuck that means, Dave Chapelle. Like, this is also an argument that happened in comedy in like 2015, and fucking the chodes are like, what do you mean, what's punching down? That would mean I think I'm better than people, and I don't think I'm better than nobody. I'm punching straight forward. Like,
I like how you go into the like what is the neighborhood in Baltimore that you're making fun of? Isn't it?
I just thought it was a great Tim Dillon impression.
It's all Hamden-y.
Hamden-y,
yeah. But so basically making it really easy for people who are also uncomfortable with these ideas to use the same logic. And I've seen over and over again people defending this special saying, well, if you're criticizing it, you didn't really watch it.
Yeah, which is absolutely insane. As someone who's watched it, number one, I could give exactly the same criticisms had I not watched it, but this time I have watched it, so I know it's right. But
you frequently don't watch things and then criticize it.
Yes, frequently.
That's a frequent thing that Marlo does.
Yes. I will watch it and realize, I would have said exactly the same thing if I didn't watch it, and I would have been happier because then I wouldn't have had to waste my time watching this.
Which is what I did.
Bon vivant over here.
Lover of life, baby. Life is too short for negativity and surrounding myself with shitty Dave Chappelle
That's right.
specials.
Love and light over here.
Never says a negative thing about anything.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, no, so he does provide this cover. So if anybody says anything close to these ideas, they will be told that, oh, you're just repeating talking points. Like, you're not really listening, Bravo, I guess, on some level, for pretending like...
Okay, I didn't watch it. I did see that there was a lot of anxiety around Twitter specifically in it.
I wouldn't say that. He talks about Twitter sort of specifically in regards to the story about the specific trans woman that he then reveals is no longer with us. She committed suicide. And
she's in the astral plane.
Yeah. She is
here.
like, look.
She's hanging out with Mario.
Yeah, they're hanging out. They're like, they've got some really cool Halloween plans, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he brings it up specific to that, where he says Twitter's not a real place, which interesting because you seem to be kind of fixated about the things people say.
Sorry your friend got killed by a fake person.
So...
again, what the fuck is it? Is it okay to say whatever you want, and if you get your feelings hurt, that's your fault for being a big baby? Or did a bunch of meanies on Twitter make your friend kill herself?
He does it. So I'll sum it up for Steve, who hadn't seen it. So Dave meets this trans woman who's a big fan of his. She's laughing at all of his trans jokes. So he is like,
I'm not saying anything offensive.
He's like, this is great.
Black people are laughing at my racist joke. I can't be racist.
So then when he's looking to practice for the first of these series of Netflix specials 5 years ago, he reaches out to this trans woman because she was an aspiring comedian and asks her to open for him. Now, he has never seen her comedy and he doesn't know at this time, but she's only performed less than 10 times at this point. And then he also gives her 45 minutes, which is very unusual. It's not unheard of for a more established comic to sort of benevolently, whatever, for on their whims and whatever, bestow somebody some time. But usually they're going to give you 10, 15 minutes. Gave this woman 45, and she bombed. And he's joking about how she bombed.
It should be mentioned that he also specifically more or less said that he picked her partially as a cover.
He does pretty much say that, but it was he's sincerely flattered by the reverence she has for him. So it's like, which I guess he thinks is the same as as other virtuous things. So then she bombs, whatever. He goes on, and then there's like a moment later where she gets to like have some great comeback to somebody else in the audience, and it's sort of a funny moment and blah, blah, blah. And then when his first Netflix special comes out and he receives a ton of criticism about the transphobia, she is on Twitter and she defends Dave, sort of parroting the, he doesn't punch down or up. He says it verbatim in the special, like he doesn't punch down or up, he punches lines or whatever. Yeah, so like, but you know, like, I also diplomatically, like, you meet people, you feel like your friend, like it's not, I understand it, but the way he is telling the story is like blah, 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 and then the trans community dragged her all over Twitter, and she was holding her own because she's funny, da, 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 and then he reveals that a week later, she kills herself. And he says, I don't know if it was...
We're sorry he did this, by
yeah,
the way.
the getting dragged on Twitter or whatever, but it didn't help.
To the astral plane, we're sorry.
They're zip-zopping around. They're fucking doing it all. Yeah, and when I say zip-zopping, they're playing the improv warm-up game, zip-zap-zop. On the astral plane. Look, they can do whatever they want.
No one has ever watched a Netflix special in the afterlife. It's why it's the afterlife.
Well, whatever. And like, you know, he says he's gonna
What if it's the good place?
No. Anyway.
So yes, he infers not too codedly that basically the Twitter dragging contributed possibly to her suicide, and then he kind of wraps up the whole thing by saying she didn't belong to the trans community. She was part of his tribe, which is comedians.
Yeah, except also she was a trans woman, and suicide is
offensive.
Suicide is like actually disproportionately fairly common in that community, and maybe you could look into that.
Wait, is he saying that trans people are only trans people if they attack other trans people on Twitter?
No one knows what he's saying.
No, he's saying that the so-called trans community is no community at all because they're primarily concerned with dragging each other and whatever. Well, and because earlier in the special he has a problem with another trans woman, but this is one he's made up. This is clearly one he's made up. The woman who's died is a real person, but he gives an example of seeing this trans woman in a club, and that she's given him the business and doing all the talking points at him. She's white and she's with two gay black men. Like, she says something about like, my people have struggled for decades, which this is how you know it's a made up person, because no trans person would say something like decades, because they've only existed for 35 years. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway.
Oh my stars.
Like, you know, also I just think there's a level of like just him exploring things through comedy in a way that is like sloppy here, in a way that it's irritating on a like just a comedy level too.
One of the sloppy things about that joke is, his ultimate like crescendo of a point was how dare she use the phrase my people. Because the oppressions aren't the same. But in the setup,
he says, you mean my people, what, did they kidnap you from Transylvania and bring you over here as slaves?
Okay, but for the record, in the setup to the joke, he also noted that he presumed that this trans woman surely must be closeted because otherwise she would be in danger of getting her ass kicked at the bar he was at. So when your point is this person is not upset, but in the same joke, you take for granted that this person is in physical danger being in a space that I am safely in?
Okay, so there's a certain conversation I've gotten in with men where I've gotten some version of, okay, yeah, all right, but it's enough with all the bad things men have done, Bunny, because you need men to protect you.
Well, that's always a bad play.
So, which is,
No
I
matter
do
who's playing
full
it.
disclosure, I do a whole bit about it in my stand-up. But this is a theme, I think, where there's this sort of, and this is like crossing the Joe Rogan, like whatever nexus of things. This is a version of masculinity these men relate on, where they are the last thing in line of protection from like whatever the fuck. Like
Usually other men.
It's like fairy tales for women, but it's completely validated because men are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it just...
like newsflash, I need men to protect me from other men primarily, so...
Like, as a rule, if you think that this person might be killed for being around a place that you are around and not having that fear, they're the more oppressed one in that moment. In that moment, maybe in other contexts it's different, but yeah, the guy on the electric chair with the on switch getting thrown is the most oppressed person in the room for that moment.
But that version of masculinity, it's like there's this thing where seems to be a belief that like almost like Jordan Peterson-y, like this is the natural way things are. We have to accept it. And I'm uncomfortable that you're not accepting how things really are. Yeah, you can do all this other stuff on top of it, but you have to accept what it really is. And gender is this, and it means this. And a lot of these flowery stories about masculinity, I think, are a little bit wrapped up here too, and that's why Dave Chappelle's biceps have gotten so big.
Well, I thought about Jordan Peterson's argument before because it is I'm cutting through the bullshit and seeing the world how it really is, kind of, and I'm the only one enlightened to this, whereas these kind of mafia Twitter people and trans mafia and alphabet mafia people, they're all propagandized basically into being this activist class that has been taught to attack me for when I say the wrong thing, and therefore I'm more oppressed for being attacked, which is a lot of what I've gotten from him in the past special and from what you're saying in this special, is that when I say something shitty about somebody, it's actually me that's being stifled with my speech, which is similar to, I think J.K. Rowling uses that.
Well,
and Jordan Peterson said that when he wouldn't honor somebody's
that's the initial, his impetus for his becoming known was a conversation around pronouns in Canada.
And it's all about like cutting through the bullshit. I have this more enlightened perspective on things, which is, you know, more or less an admission that I haven't recognized the world is changing around me and I refuse to change with it.
Well, there's obviously, it's like, I don't want to confront my mortality and admit things are changing in ways that I couldn't anticipate. But what bothers me is that there's a pretense of like, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, no, you're not. You're not actually curious because you don't take in any information unless it's presented to you in a very like flattering package, you know?
It's sea lioning. Like those, I'm just asking questions over here. I already have a predetermined idea of what I think about the world. However, I'll patronize your questions while I formulate what I think about you in order to take you down because I think less of you.
Well, I think it's also a resistance of looking at things materially, right? Because you don't have to have a whole bunch of thoughts about why trans people exist in order to recognize that they occupy a secondary class and are experiencing certain patterns of things that are not great. Like you don't have to think about any of that to look at the material reality of what's happening, right? Like you don't have to think about God or nature or blah 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 to be like, this person I've seen exists. But it's difficult for people because of these essential stories about gender and etc. Like,
and the world changing and they're not. It does remind me a lot of the fears of masculinity around homosexuality. We often forget about how
this is
much,
the tie that binds.
how much men were scared that they were going to be raped in bathrooms if gay people admitted they were gay. The amount to which
just the intense fears around seeming gay in any context. I've been indulging, as I've said before, in a lot of late 90s, early 2000s media in the past few months. And it is just like, wow, I was swimming in this shit as a young person, and just you'd think it's normal.
Well, and my favorite is the Law and Order episode with the gay football player who has to end up killing his lover instead of coming out of the closet because it would ruin his career, and there was a whole like moral panic about it, and it was seen as progressive at the time that they were even approaching the topic in like 2003 or 2004, and like we often whitewash that out of existence as though we were already progressed and always had been.
Well, because there's so much pressure to pretend like we're all the fucking once and future kings here. Like,
and again,
oh no, everything I know that's good right now, I've always known it for all of time. And I mean, there's an argument on a quantum woo-woo level. Okay. We're not talking about that.
Plane.
All right. We're not talking about that. We're talking about pretending full-on fakery, and we know it's fucking fake. We know we can't possibly remember every goddamn thing we've ever said. And we know, even if we are ashamed to admit it, we know we've thought more align with what the mainstream beliefs were about things when they were the mainstream beliefs and whatever. But like everyone's got to do this weird thing where like they just lie till they die. Which shout out my craziest Greek friend's mom for that was the advice she gave.
Lie till you die.
Lie till you die. You get caught doing something, lie till you die. Like you would get in more trouble. Stoning? You would get in more trouble. You fucking admitted it.
Yeah, no,
are you fucking kidding me?
Nothing's
That's
real
very
until
Greek.
you.
That is a very Greek, culturally Greek.
I think it's Roger Stone's also his. It's his.
Yeah.
But
that's very much how people are rolling these days. And
anyway, speaking of high school football gay suicide pacts, Heathers is a great movie.
Oh yes, we did watch Heathers. Have you seen Heathers?
Yes, I've seen Heathers.
Yeah, I saw it for the first time recently.
Oh, it's great.
Huge fan.
Huge fan. No, it's an amazing,
great
iconic movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Makes me happy to say it.
Marlo and I saw James Bond yesterday.
Yeah. Heathers, though. Wonderful film.
Heathers, it was really nice to see this movie of a time when, like, it was played, like... well, you could just bring a gun to school.
Oh, yeah.
Which also we brought up while we were watching the movie.
Marlo did. Marlo definitely brought a gun to school. I brought a gun to school. No, well, in this podcast were people that... It was pre-Columbine. You were just bringing guns.
We did.
You test it out by bringing fake guns, and then you bring a real one.
No. Anyway, what we were saying, though, is... from the Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast Club. That's why the nerd is in detention, because he brought a gun to school.
And
I mean, how casual.
And he got Saturday detention, and it was the funniest thing in the world.
So Christian Slater in Heathers is a full-on psychopath.
People are making fun of him because he didn't do anything with it, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christian Slater, he does. He's got blanks at first.
But I like the idea of doing a dark version of the Breakfast Club guy. What's his name?
John Hughes.
Yeah.
They're not dark enough for you when you watch them with an eye of today?
Heathers is the clearly I want to make a dark John Hughes version of... Yeah, there's weird shit about John Hughes
Wasn't
movies.
there another one that was the Virgin Suicides also?
That's way later. That's like early 2000s.
Yeah, that's like
Sophia
Tom
Coppola,
Cruise.
Kirsten Dunst.
But there is...
I dislike that movie for reasons I can't remember at the moment. I just remember having a version to it. My sister loved it though. But yeah, Heather's is great. He brings a gun, and I mean,
I brought a gun to school and she gave me a kick. My house if I knew the truth.
Are you doing Teenage Dirtbag, Steven?
I'm just a teenage dirtbag. He brings a gun to school in that song.
Yeah. Her boyfriend, who was a dick, brought a gun to school.
Yeah.
Yes, we know.
And they have to censor it out because Columbine has
Oh,
just
right.
happened.
Just when that was fun.
Like Columbine happened, then the music video for that
yeah,
dropped.
fucking goddamn Dylan and Eric ruining it for everyone.
all the
Get the fuck out of here, you
gun bringers
guys.
to school.
Yeah, no, but Heather's is like...
If Columbine hadn't happened, we'd be fucking just loading up
We'd be
all the
fucking-
No,
blah, blah,
like-
blah, blah,
I'd
blah.
have 2 guns in my bra
I mean,
right
Heather's
now.
literally does ask the question before Columbine happened, what if they were the good guys? And it's a great movie. What if they had a really good point?
Wait, what was their great point?
I don't know. Most of the people he killed kind of did suck.
Marlo, I feel like we have differing.
So he's the
Okay,
he's the
I'm sorry.
bat-
You watch Heathers and tell me that like all the popular kids he decided to kill because they sucked didn't actually suck.
So he's
no,
Joker-fied.
okay.
I think it's bad he killed
I
them.
see a manipulative sociopath
Oh, sure,
manipulating a girl into the murder of people she knows. It's inconsequential how much they suck. They have
But
not
they do.
actually done anything. Like, he does not try to distribute a sort of real justice. Like, that's
Oh,
part
no,
of it.
really?
I feel like you didn't. I feel like that's part of the point of.
No, I think she pusses out. I think she's like, oh, this doesn't make me feel good. And it's like, yeah, but, you got to fight through that.
You think? I mean, it's hilarious to pretend the 2 jocks are having a gay murder-suicide with each other. Hilarious.
Make
But-
that movie.
Dude, the jock,
Now-
they
I want that movie.
They raped a person in the scene prior. Like, they they're not good people.
Wait, he just lied about doing things with Winona Ryder's character. Was what?
No.
he did.
They raped the passed out, one of the Heathers passed out.
No, she had sex. She was actively having sex with him, and then she cries because when he's dead, she's like, he died the day after we had sex. So
2 different movies.
you're thinking of a John Hughes movie where having sex with an unconscious woman happens.
Oh, okay. They were 2 Ohio football
of course,
stars.
but,
They
like-
probably deserved it. Stuyvesant, come on.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ! No, I don't like that. Part of the point is that Christian Slater's character is like just as terrible of a person.
Oh, yeah, sure. And he gets what's coming to him, but I'm not saying he was an avenging angel or anything. I'm not saying it's a superhero
I
movie.
thought you just
I'm
said, what
saying-
if they are the good guys? That was the premise that you just
Okay,
said
I'll back
5
up
minutes ago.
I'll back up and go with the had sort of a point.
So
I'll qualify it back to had sort of a point.
I'm Christian Slater.
Yeah, no, he
And
talks
I
like that the
have
whole
a
time.
great idea for killing all these popular people. I'm
I'm
in
like
that-
really pretentious in a way that's completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
I'm Christian Slater. I
don't
was
know.
in The Name of the Rose as an altar boy.
I'm basically the guy from Catcher in the Rye.
I was a little child and I was raped by Sean Connery. Oh, come here, Christian.
Wait, I like to imagine you just have a very limited amount of impressions you can do, and also it's just going to be a
just Sean
daisy
Connery.
chain of sexual assault with them, but victims victimize, and you know who raped Sean Connery? Christopher Walken. I can't do Christopher Walken.
Please
trying
do.
to
I don't want to attempt it. I don't want to have to.
Hey, Sean. Why don't you
Drop your
drawers?
I'm dropping my trowels. Christian get off of me, Sean.
Yeah. I think we can cut most of that out.
No, sir.
Marlo, I swear to God, you are like hilarious. When I listen back sometimes, Marlo like will get on something and Marlo is like, I hate it. It's so fucking funny. It's like
I like thinking of this like threesome between Christian Slater, Sean Connery, and Christopher Walken.
I think he's another easy impression to do. I'll jump in, and then it's just Catherine Hepburn. Christopher.
Get off of me, Sean.
Who was that supposed to be?
It's Christian Slater struggling underneath three other in a robe in the name of the rose. He's got rosary beads.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
Well, I guess that's the end of the episode.
Oh man. You don't have an impression, Marlo?
No, I don't do impressions. Impressions are a form of lying.
Oh, shout out to me. I did do my Melania impression this week for the
Oh yeah, you got
shout out to the Baltimore County Democrats.
who paid Bunny to pretend to be Melania Trump.
They did.
Do it.
Oh, well, hello. I'm like so upset still about this book that came out about my chief of staff is. And she was like, you know, what's her face? What a betrayal.
That's pretty good. That's a good Melania.
Well, I stopped doing Melania because I got upset because I thought I was just going to do Melania for 6 months and then Trump won the election. And I was like, I can't. And then she didn't do anything. She didn't say anything. So it was like, you know, I could have probably built a whole...
Well, she had the fascist coat on.
Yeah. Well, and in the book, because I did look up... I
do not care. I do not care,
Yeah,
Donald.
she's like...
Donald, I do not care.
The chief of staff lady, Stephanie whatever, is like, I tried to get her to admit that she hadn't really looked at the code. Which is, I think the truth of it is that she really hadn't looked at the code.
I read a really
and
good...
then she said she was going to cross out the don't. And then she was like, oh, I'll just cross it out so when I get off, it'll be like... I care, like not like I don't care
so much.
Yeah, and then the woman was like, they'll have before and after photos. Like we can't do that, and like
that would be, if anything, worse.
I just love it so much.
There's 2 cycles.
Yeah. Oh, there's
That's
another
2
good
cycles
part
of the
where
news.
Melania's like, I don't want to be in any pictures holding Donald's hand after, like, you know, I don't look like Hillary Clinton. She looks so bad after Monica. They come out holding the hand. Made her look stupid. It's like, that's almost verbatim the quote that is in the book.
Was it a big boon when it came out, that recording of her hitting on immigrants? Did that give you some material when she's like, these immigrants, they come from Mexico and I hate them so much?
No, I really like the stuff she said about Christmas being stupid.
Oh, yeah.
That was really fun. And I put just lightning behind me for my background. It was a Zoom show. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm on vacation, you know, family place. Just because I like this idea that Melania exists in this sort of like weird, like, nefarious netherworld. Like all of her Christmas decorations were like a humorless Nightmare Before Christmas. like no whimsy, just like, what if it was all like stabby black trees? And I just like the idea that's really who Melania is.
I like that Zizek has a connection to Melania.
Slovenians,
Because
yes.
they have like a...
Ljubljana or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should have put some Zizek in my Melania impression.
Just...
So,
Yes, the
I was
that
doing
will
the
really
speeches.
play to the Maryland Democrats.
Yeah.
They will absolutely all understand what you're doing.
I would love
and
if I
why.
had one super fan who was like, look how layered this is.
Yes.
You just like have like a speech impediment.
Yeah,
And you
which
rub your-
I do.
And you rub your nose a bunch and
Yeah,
you
just-
sniff. Yeah.
But it'd be like very, very like very delicate Melania. It's just a Slovenian thing. It's not even.
On the allergy.
Oh, Melania. Yeah. Wait. So the premise of it was like it's a debate. So one of my friends was playing like the My Pillow guy and etc. So
A defender of American values.
yeah. So yeah, but they were like, oh, like, do you think Donald will run again, Melania, or do you want to go back to the White House? I was like, I was barely ever there anyway. I'll stay where I was last time.
How'd the Maryland Democrats take it?
They loved it. Look, they loved it. I did sit through at least 7 speeches.
Oh my
And I
God.
assume the only people there were the other Baltimore County Democrats, and they were giving like very inspirational speeches about like voting and like whatever. And I was like, who you telling? The literal organizers for the Baltimore County Democrats?
They never vote. It's been confirmed
Like-
that the organizers of the Democratic Party.
Bless them. It's very funny. There was some cute the first time I did things for the Democrats, I was 13 knocking on doors. And I'm like, oh, I know. Because I was also like a child my dad brought to like when he made like calls for Mikulski in Baltimore. He oh man. He loves them. Anyway, all right.
All right.
Well, next week on competitive autisms and Steve.
Competitive autisms and a bipolar guy. New
Bye.
podcast name.
New podcast name. Rebrand.
Wait a minute's too long. My toes are almost in a puncture. Robin, with every ounce of breath that's left in you, sing along with me. Sing what? Don't ask questions, Robin. Sing each note precisely as I do. When I sing, you sing. Ready, Robin? Sing.
Will that terrible song never stop?
Death squeals of a brace of bats. Nice singing, Robin. It saved our lives. Holy Caruso, how? Observe how this machine works. Music for the master piano is picked up by this microphone and transmitted to the perforating cylinders which reproduce the chords perfectly. We outshouted the piano, don't you see?
Sure, but how come we didn't get punched full of holes?
Because of the notes I selected. They were calculated to make the punches fall precisely around the outlines of our bodies. I visualized the chords in my mind.
Holy, perfect pitch.
Yes, it's useful sometimes.